I'm over here in the pen, and I was actually in the front yard on the side garden, which I don't show nearly enough, and I'm gonna show you that today. It is just a wildflower garden, and sometimes we cut the flowers off. Like last year, I cut some of the roses and made a little bouquet with some wildflowers for my cousin after her dance recital. But most of the time we don't cut them, we don't bother them, we just kind of let them do their own thing. It's a great way to have a very pretty wild garden, but it has a huge L-shaped box around it and perimeter, so it kind of keeps it neat and clean, since we are in an urban setting and the city doesn't want just a wild yard with tall flowers all over it. They like the grass neatly cut and everything else, so having a huge L shape around it allows us to have that tall wild garden with several different types of flowers that basically reseeds itself every year. I can't think of the last time I put anything into that garden, actually. I think I threw some turnip seeds in it earlier this year, but mostly everything else, and even some of the turnips and carrots that were in it, they reseeded themselves. I think most of the carrots in there actually reseeded themselves from the carrots that we put in there the first year we had the bed. And so what they're eating right now are some of the plants that have decided to sow themselves in the walkway, and I really do need to go in and clear up all those walkways so that they're just not full of little plants. And of course, with it being spring, these plants, they are popping up fast, they are growing fast, and it's warm already, so they are just taking off. And since we've had some rainy weather here and there, that means they have plenty of fuel between the sun and the water to get really big, really fast, and kind of get out of control. So here are all the plants, and you can see the ducks are more interested in it. The geese ate what they wanted, but they're more interested in standing here and seeing if I'm going to let them in the other parts of the yard. They're kind of, I don't want the plants right now, but we don't want the ducks to have them either. Will you stop chewing on my fence? What are you doing down there? Huh? What are you doing? Guys, this one's Nemo. The mom, she's right here. Ooh, it's getting a little blurry. Closest to me, she was picking at the fence, and her babies are all taller than her now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the front garden. Now, I don't know all of the types of flowers that are popping up. They came from a wild flower seed mix. So I'm going to go show just some of the flowers that have popped up over time since we seeded this mix. And it did have a lot of filler, and it was just like a $10 bag of seeds from the local grocery store. I think we got them from H-E-B, to be honest. So if you know what type of flowers they are, let me know. I'm very curious myself, but I have discovered for sure that there are a couple of bachelor button plants, and I didn't even know for sure what they were, but I saw some videos on them, and then I went ahead and Googled it, and sure enough, that's what they appear to be, which is really cool. Okay, so over here's the area that I have the big L-shaped garden in, and you can see all the flowers. But right here, I have my newest garden bed that's a little triangular shape, and you even see over here we still have some of the grass trying to come through, but this is the fennel that's seeded from this big bed into here already. And then these were much bigger. They've kind of died back and they're putting off new growth, and I can see where, look, they have little babies popping up here, and here they've reseeded themselves. This is calendula. There are 2 orange ones and 2 yellow ones, and I actually have a packet of 50 seeds for, I believe, a cream type of calendula that just came in. I think I bought them from Baker's Creek. Hey buddy. And so I really need to start plants. I want to start some more squash plants in case squash bugs get those. And then there's a lot of space for sowing flowers in here. Even with the calendula seeds, basically they dropped off the flowers and just kept growing. And so These will get big again, but they're kind of going through their cycle. You can see some new growth shooting up, but these were pretty tall. And I have some other videos, I think, that kind of show them off earlier in the season. But there's a lot of growth space just in this bed, and I just haven't done anything. I haven't really decided what I want to do with it, if I want to just leave it for calendula only, or if I want to mix flowers. I did think about sowing maybe some radishes or carrots in it temporarily. I just really don't know. So I don't know. If you have any ideas, let me know. This is kind of where the new cuttings for the blackberries are. Some of them look kind of sad, but some of them are starting to produce leaves again, and I'm just leaving them alone. I do need to kind of trim some of it back to encourage the growth, but they're still forming roots, so they look really sad right now, but pretty soon they will have new growth and it'll be fine. And if not, there are plenty more. You can kind of see this one has really taken off and is now producing new leaves and everything else. So I'm just kind of waiting to see what happens exactly. They don't always all take, some do. They look rough for a while and then they come back. But these are just such pretty plants, and I love our berries so much. I can't wait to see how they look with all the other gardens on the front. And so this is my oldest son's little triangular bed garden, and these plants have all been in here for a while, except for, of course, the buttercups, which have sown themselves this season from last year's garden. And these beautiful little pansies, which are some of the flowers that I harvested during our edible flower videos. These make really good syrups. So these are edible. They make syrup, or you can eat them fresh. They're also really pretty if you're one of those who likes to make candy, like suckers. These are pretty in the middle, and they're also really pretty for any kind of breads, and they're so soft. Look, they're just beautiful. And then we have all of these. These are chives. So I actually bought like a packet of like 20 something thousand chive seeds from Johnny Seeds because we love chives so much, and they're just so much easier to grow than onions, to bulb onions. And these have been here for this is the second year. We made this bed last year, and so they just keep producing. And I even have seeds saved from these plants, and all you have to do is cut these off and let them dry, stick them in a Ziploc bag, and they'll release their seeds when they dry, and you can kind of shake them around. So they're really easy to save seeds. Look, there's even a little dandelion in here. I know some people are like, why are you letting weeds grow? But for us, dandelions are a really valuable plant. The flowers can be made into jelly, and the roots can be used, so it has a lot of uses, and the leaves can also be used. And our rabbits really love dandelions. We actually even looked at getting some pink dandelion seeds to plant because we love them so much. And nobody is complaining for the city with the dandelion is in the flower bed, so it's kind of mixed in with the other flowers, and nobody really even notices it. And then in the front, here are some turnips that are planted, and it's crazy how when they're planted with other flowers, the turnips really just look like a normal plant in the garden. You wouldn't even know. And this is marjoram. Look how big it is. This is last year's marjoram. It made it through the winter, and it is massive. It has such a good smell. That is a big, healthy plant. It is taking over a lot of this bed. I asked my son if he wanted me to come through and clear out some of these buttercups, and he of course said no, that he really liked them. And then right here, all of these seeds are still attached. This is actually what is left from his sweet basil plant that he had planted. It got to be over 3 feet tall, and you can just see the parts that haven't been cut down, how big it is. He did not want me to remove this either. It's his garden, so I kind of respected that and let it be. And then down here, we have some lemon, what is it, lemon thyme? Is that what it is? Yep, variegated lemon thyme. Oh, it smells like lemon, and it's so pretty with these little yellow leaves on it, the variegation. Oh, it's so pretty. There were 2 of them. one didn't make it. Let's see, organic variegated lemon thyme. That's what it is. And then I don't know what this is. I'll be interested to see. It may just be a grass, but I will not pull it out because, like I said, it's his garden and he can kind of decide what he wants in here. Now you can see where I have been pulling out the weeds that were in here. And look, a little tiny basil plant. I was so sad that there was not any basil. Of course, it's in the walkway, but I'm not going to pull that out. This one I might have to transplant. So we do have some basil. It looks like it's just in the walkway of all things. I'm surprised there's not more basil all in these beds because we had a ton of basil, but I think that early freeze that we got kind of knocked a lot of it out. So all of these plants right here, like this one, these are in the walkway, and what I will do is come through and just pull them up like this. They're fairly easy to pull up for the most part because of how this is. Now some of them won't pull up, and I'll come through with like a hoe or a rake or any of that and pull them out. And then all of this will go to the geese. And look, here's, they're just taking over. So there's no point in having these in the walkway, and if you let them go, it will just make a huge mess. So it's really easy to clear out the walkway. It's just a matter of doing it. You kind of have to be on top of it because, you know, like I was saying, it's so warm, and all of these flowers right here, they will seed. This is them seeding into the walkway. They just kind of take over. So I don't know what all these plants are. You can see we have a clover here, and while I could pull this up, it's not really doing anything. It does create a nice little ground cover, and when it dies and breaks down, it'll add nutrients back to the soil. If it was kind of in my vegetable garden, I'd worry about it a little bit more, but it's not. It's in the wildflower garden, and it really just doesn't matter. So there are some things in here that people would consider weeds, and believe it or not, some of these were in the seed packets. You know, they put a lot of crazy filler in. Like the buttercups was a big filler for the wildflower seed pack, and it only takes a couple of buttercups to take over everything. But then there are these plants that I don't even know what they are, but they come back. So they're all mixed in there. My peach tea rose, one of my favorite flowers in the garden. But now that it's going into year 3, it has some brutal thorns. But I would like to get some more of these just because I absolutely adore the flowers. And another thing that makes really good tea or jelly, but I'll warn you, the peach tea rose has a very, very, very distinct rose water taste and smell. It just has that very old-fashioned rose smell, and your tea and jelly can taste like rose water. So if you already know that you don't like that strong rose water flavor smell, I wouldn't recommend it. So here is our bee balm. Guys, this is also known as wild bergamot. This one is a purple flower. I've been looking at getting some of the red ones because I love them. You can see some of the old wood from last year. I cut this down drastically. Oh, I have the hiccups, I'm sorry. We have a huge amount of jars of this, just pint jars of it in my kitchen, and I love it. It's good for treating tummy aches and everything else, but also I just really like it. It has a stronger flavor than your other type of mints, because wild bergamot bee balm, it is a mint plant, so it doesn't have that sweet, lovely taste of mint and chocolate mint does. But it is still really, really good. You're gonna hear a lot of cars passing by. I try to pause the video, but there are just a lot of cars. It is really busy today. So one thing I do try to do though is see all of these. They are buttercups, but they are kind of taking over the thyme, and I don't want that. I really like this thyme plant. We've had it for a couple of years, so we don't want it to be taken over. It looks like there are some ants underneath those buttercups that I didn't see, so I didn't even notice until one bit my foot, but I just got one or two on me. Not enough to even really cause too much pain. Fire ants are everywhere down here, so you can see how they're kind of coming up through. I'm just gonna pull them back, nothing crazy. And even this, look at this time, it is flowering. Isn't that the coolest? Look at this, look at these little tiny flowers. They are so little. This is a German thyme. They're not supposed to be hardy in zone 9A. It's supposed to be too hot, but these are planted under a tree and they have the other flowers and they are doing wonderful. It's been here for a couple of years now. And those flowers are so delicate. They are beautiful. This is such a great variety because it's kind of bushy and it stays very small and compact. And I think it would do really good in like a rock garden with some shade. It's just one of my favorite varieties of thyme. I love it so much. I love it so much that it even has its own yard sign right there. But wouldn't this be so pretty in a little rock garden or in borders? It's a really nice compact border plant. Now this one is flowering and hasn't really been taken care of. It just kind of does its own thing, so it looks a little rough in areas. But if you were diligent and you trimmed some of this back and were really on top of it, it would just be perfectly fine. And a lot of this can be trimmed back and go used for cooking, so it's really no big deal. But when it first starts, for the first year and a half or so, it really makes kind of a mound bush plant, so it's really nice to look at. And then look at this. We have a ton of cilantro in this bed. I did not seed any of this year. It all reseeded from last year's cilantro, and it is all over my entire yard, everywhere. And look, it's even growing with our bulbing onions and our grapevine, which this grapevine is more used for decoration than anything, but I really do need to get some kind of trellising for it. I just pulled it back this morning off of my flowers. It is a massive muscadine. And here's some more of the cilantro. It is just everywhere. It is a big, pretty plant to look at. They are gorgeous to look at, and they also, since we're letting them flower, they're gonna produce some coriander seed for us, which is a wonderful thing for seasoning and spice, and also it doubles for the fact that we can use it as seed to plant more cilantro in other areas of the garden. Now, I'm really surprised that the cilantro is still alive because it grew throughout the winter and it really just doesn't do well in our hot summers. It's more of a cool weather plant. But it's still alive and doing well. Here's some smaller one. Oh no, it's one big one that fell over. Look at that. It's huge. So there are a lot of them. One thing that's growing in here that I need to get gloves on and pull out is this dewberry. It's a wild blackberry. You can see all the thorns. The reason I don't want it growing in here is because it's very close to the thornless blackberries that I planted. And I'm worried about disease getting transmitted from this dewberry to our thornless blackberries. Although thornless blackberries are a disease-resistant variety, we have the Arkansas Traveler and Freedom berries, which are the Primark ones. I don't want to risk it because some blackberries really are susceptible to disease, and dewberries carry a lot of them. And look, here's the bachelor button I was telling you about. How pretty is this little blue one? And this one, it just reseeds itself. So there are actually quite a bit of these in here. And it took until the second year for those to pop up. Here's another one right here. And then this foliage, I see it in several places throughout the garden. It's just kind of mixed in. And then here's some. Look at that. It's starting to flower. Isn't that pretty? And look at this. All these are kind of coming up, and you can see the different size leaves. And there are even carrots growing in here. Look, you see this? Look at this. Carrots just kind of have reseeded themselves. From last year, we had all those new Corotas, and the reason they waited is because they are biennials. So look, this is actually a really small root to a carrot, really tiny. And so they're kind of growing throughout here randomly. And the cool thing is that all of these plants keep them nice and cool and the soil damp so they can grow, so it's not getting too hot for them. And here's some more flowers. I actually don't know what several of these varieties are. I just know they came with the wildflower mix and we love them. I love the wild look of these flowers, but also they're contained enough so the edges are nice and neat, as you can see around here. But they are just so pretty. They all grow together and they kind of take turns blooming, but when these will bloom at the same time all of these little ones are coming up, that's going to be absolutely beautiful. And black-eyed Susans are one of my favorite flowers of all time. So they're just beautiful. And here's another one of those dandelions kind of hiding in everything. So I don't know what these are. It's really kind of like a silky, smooth texture, leaves almost waxy. So I don't know what they are, but if you do, let me know. I guess once they start flowering, I might give a better idea, but there are several of those. Here's another one, and even more. There are a lot of them. I think these are a bunch of individual plants and not just one plant. And then here are more. Look at this. They're just growing all together. This is one of my favorite ones to use as a filler if we do take flowers out of this garden, which I rarely do. So, and then another grapevine. This is I want to say it's a muscadine, but it's been crossed with, I think, the fry muscadine and something else. I don't know. It's definitely a cross of a couple of muscadines, and the idea is supposed to make it because muscadine grapes need two different plants. Often need a male and a female plant. This plant is supposed to be self-pollinating, and I have 3 of these, and one of them is a really big one that's kind of taking over the blackberry plants, so we got to figure that one out. And all this is where these blue containers are new, and you can see where I've kind of laid cardboard down and then put all of this on. And these will have melons in them, either cantaloupes, watermelon. I haven't quite decided. I have so many melon varieties. I even have the tiger melons that have the really pretty, like chartreuse green color in the center, and then the orange on the outside. So these will have melons planted in them of some sort, and then the melons can grow in this walkway and then over here. And I was also thinking where this grapevine is, we were talking about getting some rebar, staking it in, and making a really nice trellis all down this walkway, kind of like a tunnel, so that all the grapevine can grow across it, and it would just be really cool to walk through, especially once they start producing grapes. And then kind of here, haven't really done a lot to the front area because our front yard is so massive. We have over half an acre in the front yard, and so this and that are both blackberries, and I don't know if they're the Freedom Berry or the Arkansas Traveler, which are very closely related. They're created by the same people. They are sister berries, and there's just not a lot of difference between the berries, honestly. And then you can see how some of the fennel came through. Now, along those berries, we're planning on putting another one of those 4x16 foot growing boxes like we have on the other side where all those berries are growing. And that way when we put up a fence, everything will be about a foot off the fence, and it'll give us plenty of walkway in between the fence and the crops. And it will also it'll just be really pretty. So here's one of the fennels that was transplanted from that bulb fennel. This was a bulb cutting, so I just picked off a piece of bulb that had a root on it, and it's growing really nicely even with other plants. I keep seeing people say that fennel will kill other plants, but I just haven't seen that to be true. Here's the skeleton of our rosemary plant. The rosemary was kind of killed back during the frost. It will not grow back again. It was killed all the way through, but there's so many flowers around it. I'm just gonna let it break down. I didn't see the point of trying to pull it out or anything else. And just a ton of wildflowers. And here's some more. This is another fennel that came from a bulb cutting, and this is the amount of bulbs. I've been growing this for several years now. And I have shown several videos of me harvesting multiple bulbs out of it and the different sizes, and how we pull this mulch around to create these massive bulbs, because in the last video I made about fennel, these bulbs were really, really small, and I've hilled up around them like this to create bigger bulbs. And they are growing like crazy. And I just harvested some to feed to the geese a few days ago. So there are a ton, and all of these have seeded back in. I could probably make an entire bed of just fennel, which I like fennel and the animals like fennel. But most of my family does not like licorice flavor, and fennel has a really strong licorice flavor. These are Florence fennel, so they're bulbing fennel, but they also do produce seeds that you can eat. And this is also the plant when I made that video about the swallowtail caterpillars, the black swallowtail caterpillars. This is the host plant for them. They were all over these, and you can see just how well they're doing even after their swallowtail have left. So it's just not something that we worry about. We let the swallowtail have them, and there's still plenty left for us and our animals if we want it, but we don't really. It smells good for me. I do like it. I can make it into a licorice candy, which I've talked about a few times. But, you know, some things are more for beauty and growth than anything. And look at this. This is that chocolate mint. Oh, it smells like an Andy mint. It tastes so good. And it's even growing all in front of our house. We just cut it down, and when you mow the grass, you can smell it everywhere. Yep, eating these raw leaves is amazing. I like it because it just has a softer taste than peppermint, but it's still strong, but it smells amazing. And you can see it's growing all throughout here. This chocolate mint took over the entire bed last year. And I harvested a lot, and I gave several jars of it away. It's just relentless. Look, here's our Bulbasaur down here. It's a little Pokemon. It was a planter, but it's kind of broke over the years, and we always thought it'd be really cool to have it hiding in the garden. And my kids love coming out here and seeing it. It's just a really fun thing for them. So that's pretty much it for this garden. There's still a lot to be done. Over in this area, you can see kind of where the cardboard was under there. Go ahead and cook it then. There's one more thing I wanted to show before I got off, and look at this. These are our blueberry plants. We planted them last year. They're southern high bush, and these, we thought they would get about 4 feet, but they only get about 18 and 24 inches. Look at that. So these are some little berries that have come up, and they did produce last year too. We really need to give them a little box. We thought they were going to get like 4 feet high and 4 feet wide, so we planted them along the front, but they ended up being a much smaller variety. And we even have blackberries kind of filling in spaces where some of them didn't make it. So here's a blackberry coming up, and here's another one. And this will be really pretty along the front yard. So this is a good example of how the cuttings will kind of die back and then shoot up new roots. But I think that's about it that I'm going to cover here. I don't show the wildness of the front garden nearly enough. And so I wanted to kind of show that off, and also gives me a chance to come check on my apple trees and squash and blueberries, and just there's just so much happening this time of year, and I'm really excited and grateful for that. It gives me a lot to do. And look, this front one's finally producing squash. So thank you guys for kind of hanging out with me and seeing the wildness of our garden, and what the front garden's producing. And then of course I'll have some updates coming on all the squash beds where we're getting the several different varieties of squash, because they're all starting to come into fruition and they're all fruiting, and I'm really excited about that.